Conan Exiles just got a free Unreal Engine 5 upgrade, merged maps, revamped UI, better visuals, and a bunch of quality of life fixes, and it's free for everyone who owns the original game on Steam. But the real question is whether any of that actually runs on the Steam Deck. I tested it, and here's what I found. First, a bit of context on what this update actually is, because it's more than a graphics patch. Conan Exiles has been out since 2018. It's a survival sandbox set in the world of Conan the Barbarian. You get dropped in the exiled lands with nothing and you build from there. Base building, crafting, combat, religion systems, dungeons, trolls is the kind of game that has an enormous amount of content if you dig into it. Over 15 million players have played it at this point across 45 major updates over 8 years. That's actually a pretty long time for a game to be running. The developers brought Conan Exiles from Unreal Engine 4 to Unreal Engine 5, which is a massive technical undertaking, but the headline features alongside the engine upgrade is actually the map merge. The game has two major regions, the Exiled Lands and the Isle of Siptah, which came out as a separate expansion back in 2020. For 5 years, you had to pick one at character creation. You could either start at the Exiled Lands or in the Isle of Siptah, then that's no longer the case. Now you have one character, both maps, and you can travel between them freely. If you own the Siptah DLC, you get access to both, and they exist on the same server at the same time. Other additions include multiple characters per account, crafting from nearby storage, which was a long requested quality of life fix, a revamped UI, and the install size dropped from around 120 gigabytes down to only 68 gigabytes. So it's a cleaner, smaller, more connected game. Before I get into performance, a bit of personal context. I came into this from Dune Awakening, which is also a game made by the same developer. So I'm already familiar with how Funcom, the developer, approaches survival games, and the grind is real. There's a lot of depth if you're willing to put the time in, and the controls on controller tend to be well thought out. Conan Exiles on Steam Deck has full controller support, and I want to say this up front. For a survival game, the controls are genuinely very solid. Every menu is accessible, nothing felt buried or awkward. I had zero frustrations navigating the UI on a handheld, which is not something I can say about every survival game I've tested. Coming from Dune Awakening probably helped, since I'm used to how Funcom lays things out, but either way, I think it works very well and you're gonna have a pretty good time playing this game with a controller, not just on the Steam Deck, but with a controller in general. Okay, let's talk performance. I started on the lowest preset to get a baseline of how this update was running, and at the lowest settings, NCAP TDP, I was getting close to 60 FPS, but not quite hitting it consistently. Battery life on the OLED came out to around 2.5 hours, and fan noise was pretty noticeable. Not loud enough to be annoying in a quiet room, but you're aware it's working. And for an Unreal Engine 5 game on a handheld, I think that's actually pretty good. I then moved up to the medium preset to see what happens, and FPS dropped very quickly down to 30 and sometimes even below 30 FPS. Medium is where you get a meaningful visual upgrade. The lighting looks better, the world looks more alive, but it's not a smooth experience out of the box. So I began testing and I think I found a middle ground. I kept the medium preset, but I dropped post-processing and global illumination both to low. This combination gets me between 38 and 45 FPS. And post-processing is a cheap win at 800p anyway. The difference between medium and low post-processing is hard to see on the Steam Deck screen. Global illumination is the big one. Lumen is very heavy on your GPU. It does make things look very pretty, but dropping it enables us to gain 4 to 5 FPS. From there, I used lossless scaling at 2 times frame generation to push that 38 to 45 FPS up to a locked 60, and it's pretty good. Input lag is very minimal, however, you do get the usual LSFG issues like the straight lines jumping around with very fast motion and text being all warbled up, and this game has a lot of lines and a lot of text that will warble around, so if that bothers you, you can play without lossless scaling frame generation. You can just drop shadows and a few other settings and you can get it to around 45 FPS pretty stable. The game also has 3 upscaling options, TSR, FSR and XeSS, and I tested all 3. My recommendation is FSR set to balanced, Now, between FSR and TSR, I think the difference is pretty minimal, but FSR is just a bit lighter on the GPU and it kept the frames a bit more stable. I think it helped with the performance headroom. So the recommended config, if you want the best experience, medium preset, post-processing low, global illumination low, FSR set to balanced, and lossless scaling at 2x frame generation. I think that's the sweet spot to enjoy this game. Quick break here. If you're finding this video useful, the best thing you can do for the channel is to join the SteamFlow Steam group and follow the SteamFlow Curator page on Steam. The Curator page is where I post game recommendations specifically for Steam Deck, so if you're always trying to figure out what runs well on the deck, that's the place to check. And speaking of which, I'm giving away a copy of Conan Exiles. All you need to do is join the SteamFlow Steam group and follow the SteamFlow Curator page. I'll draw the winner on May 10th and I'll contact you via Steam. Links will be in the description. This game can be played both offline and online. There are multiplayer servers. I think they are self-hosted. I'm not sure about that. And performance will be impacted if you play online with other players. I did not get a chance to test this, but you can expect that it will not perform as well as it does offline. There is one issue I noticed is that your save file on a Steam Deck is separate from your save file on a PC. So if you create a character on the Steam Deck and it's a solo character, not one on a multiplayer server, you cannot really play that character on your PC unless you manually move the save. So where does all of this leave us overall? If you already own Conan Exiles, I think this is a no-brainer. You're getting an Unreal Engine 5 upgrade, merged maps, and a smaller install for free. I think it's a good time to experience this game even on a Steam Deck. It runs pretty decently, not perfectly. It takes a bit of configuration to get there, but with the settings I mentioned and lossless scaling, I think it's genuinely a pretty good experience. If you've never played it, right now it's 25% off. It is a pretty grindy game, that's just the nature of it. It's a survival sandbox and the grind is part of the loop. But there's also an enormous amount of content here. 8 years of updates, that means 23 dungeons, 13 biomes, 7 religions, and over 1700 armor pieces and 24 building sets. The content depth is pretty real, and if you enjoy survival games and you're okay with putting time into it, there's a lot to get out of this game. The controls on the Steam Deck are solid, the UI works on a handheld screen, and the new merged world means you're getting more to explore from the start. For a survival game that just got a free engine overhaul, the Steam Deck experience is a lot better than I expected going in, and I absolutely recommend playing this game on the deck. That's gonna be it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, leave a like. And if you hated it, let me know what I can do to improve. If you're into Steam Deck, Steam hardware, and handhelds content, consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.